Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome back to TML Domain podcast. I hope you all have a good week, ramping up for the holidays, Christmas, New Year's. I hope you all have great plans. Um, this week in the NHL, uh, Gary Bettman has kind of said that he's willing to talk to Quebec or the Quebec government and the city of Quebec about a team, which is very interesting. Um, he's never really been open to talking about Quebec or putting a team in Quebec. And now that they have 32 teams and they have, the perfect number is 32. I mean, you have 8 teams in every conference and there's four divisions, and you have 8 teams in every division. And now that they have the numbers evened out, it's funny that they want to talk about Quebec now. It's interesting to see where it's going to go. It could be just lip service, but we'll see where that goes. We'll have to pay attention to that conversation. It looks like the sale of the Pittsburgh Penguins is going to get approved and it's going to go through to the Fenway Group. And apparently, Mario Lemieux is going to stay on and do the same thing he's currently doing with the team. So it looks like not much is going to change. Just maybe just the name in terms of ownership is changing, and the Fenway Group is a big group and they have lots of money. So when it comes to spending money and the Pittsburgh Penguins continuing to be a good team, looks like that's going to be the case, and they're going to spend the money and they're going to keep that team relevant. So it's good news for the Pittsburgh Penguins. $900 million price tag. It's a pretty good price for that team, considering, I thought it might actually be more considering how much they've won in the last 10 years and Sidney Crosby being there. But, all that is debatable. The value of a team and how much one player can do to increase that value. And the Leafs continue to roll. They had 4 games last week. They lost to Winnipeg and Tampa, and they beat Columbus and Chicago. And that Chicago game was very entertaining. And unfortunately, the Leafs have only played 1 game this week. The game in Calgary was postponed, postponed due to COVID. And we're thinking about everybody in Calgary. Hopefully, this is not a long-term thing, and everybody gets back up to health, and the team starts playing, and we can get COVID out of the NHL. In Ontario, they've announced that sports venues are going to be at 50% capacity. So the Leafs and the Raptors and the Marlies are going to be playing at 50% capacity. And last night, with very short notice, the Philadelphia Flyers, I believe, were in Montreal. And the government asked the Montreal Canadiens to play the game with nobody in the stands. No reduced capacity, just straight down to nobody. And that happened last night. And I believe there's some news out there right now about the Montreal Canadiens. They may have some games postponed. And so, it's a shame that, the games have to get postponed and the product has to be weakened a little bit because of COVID. But, you just hope everybody stays safe and they do the right things. And not only for the hockey games on the ice, but you also expect, or you would hope that, families and loved ones and grandparents and parents, are kept safe with these players. They travel a lot. They're all in one locker room and sharing facilities, and it takes one lapse in judgment or one decision for a player to go meet somebody, say hi to a friend somewhere, or go to a public place where that place, it could be anything, a restaurant, a coffee shop. If that place reports one positive case, then out of abundance of caution, everybody else, there's a domino effect to that. So it's unfortunate that we got to live this way, but you just hope that everybody stays safe and they keep their teammates and their loved ones and their family, parents, grandparents, everybody stay safe. That's all we care about. It's the holiday season, and it's, you know, everyone's different, but you want to see family, you want to spend time with family. It's that time of the year, and you hope it doesn't affect what goes on in terms of other stuff. There's no domino effect in terms of sports and businesses closing down and capacities being reduced, and it affects everybody. It affects businesses, it affects their employees. There's a bottom line there. But just in terms of sports, the Leafs only played one game this week. They played the Edmonton Oilers, and it was a highly anticipated game. Um, you know, Leafs Oilers on the schedule, I get very amped up. I was excited from the moment I woke up that day. I was ready for a good game, very much like the Minnesota game a couple of weeks before on the Saturday. That was a very good game to me. Even though the Leafs lost in the shootout, that was a highly entertaining game. Just two good teams battling it out. That's great content right there. So I was really expecting the same thing from the Oilers, high scoring game. Even though there were 6 goals in the game, I expected more out of Edmonton, but it seems like regardless of how good McDavid and Draisaitl are, and they're two exceptional players, the Edmonton Oilers lack two things, and that's goaltending and supplemental scoring. And supplemental scoring is always going to be an issue, especially when you're spending a lot of money on the top end, like the Leafs and the Oilers do. Now, a lot of people criticize the Leafs for spending $50 million on 4 players, and that tightens up their cap situation in terms of being able to retain and re-sign and spending money in the off season. But look at the decisions Dubas has made. Kasha, Kampf, Bunting, all these guys are relatively inexpensive players, and they're providing a lot of value. And the Edmonton Oilers need to start thinking like that too. The Edmonton Oilers went out and spent a lot of money on Zach Hyman, and he's a great player. And I was hoping that the Leafs would re-sign him and he would stay in Toronto long term and retire a Leaf, considering he's a local boy. But when you go spend $5.5 million, um, it doesn't address supplement. It doesn't supplement your scoring. That signing. And the Leafs, for the $5.5 million that Hyman got, they added, Nick Ritchie at 2 million, and Kasha at 1.2, and Kampf at 1.5, and Bunting 950. You get a bunch of players who can do a lot of good things, and people can criticize the analytical approach that Dubas and the Leafs management use, but that analytical approach shows that Bunting on a bad team in Arizona did a lot of good things net front, produced some puck possession, and there was some scoring to his game that was really untapped. And it's different situations, but if you compare Bunting stats to Hyman stats, they're pretty much identical. And you got one player at 5.5 and one player at 950. There comes a time where you don't have to just go out and get the sexy name. Sometimes you got to make hard decisions, and you actually have to use the information you have to make a good hockey decision. And Ken Holland is a great GM. He's got a great resume. He's a very smart hockey guy. You know, to go out and get Duncan Keith and Zach Hyman is a lot of cap space that could be used to supplement the scoring on that team. And the Edmonton Oilers were never in this game. The Leafs, dominated the Edmonton Oilers from start to finish. Even though the Edmonton Oilers had more shots on net, I really don't think that means anything. You could be throwing a lot of shots on net from the outside, and it could be quantity over quality, but the Leafs scored one power play goal, and Edmonton didn't score on the power play. And it's a game where they had opportunities. Like, obviously Draisaitl had a wide open empty net, and sometimes that's the way it goes. That's a law of averages, right? You're scoring, from the goal line on one-timers and putting pucks top corner on goalies, and that's where the talent shows, and Draisaitl does that a lot. But then there comes times where the net's wide open from that same spot. You've scored a million goals and you miss the net completely. And that's a law of averages. That's the way it works. That game started out with Austin Matthews scoring a goal in front of the net, which is something that he's done a lot more this season. He's figured out that if he doesn't get to the net front, sure, you can score a lot of goals from the perimeter, but come the playoffs, you got to get in front of the net. You got to get into the nit and gritty. And he's got great hands, and he's definitely figured out how to score there. John Tavares on that play, on that first goal, did a lot of grunt work trying to get that puck over to Austin Matthews, and he does, and Matthews deposited into the net, and it's a 1-0 game on the power play. And then the next goal is pretty much, the same. Clifford flying down the wing, passes it back to Morgan Riley, and Morgan Riley just does whatever he has to get the puck to the net. And Wayne Simmons scores net front, puts it in behind Koskinen, and that's 2-0. And the third goal, TJ Brody from the point, it's you don't necessarily want to see superstars blocking shots because of the potential of getting hurt and everything like that, but McDavid kind of tries to get out of the way of that shot, but kind of leaves his stick trailing behind him, and that Brody slap shot goes off of his stick into the top corner, and Koskinen isn't able to readjust his glove to make that save, and all of a sudden it's 3-0 Toronto, and that's the first two periods. Colton Sevier scored a goal for the Edmonton Oilers to make it 3-1, and it's the type of goal they need to score more in Edmonton. In Edmonton, Colton Sevier, the puck's around the net, it's bouncing around, and he puts a garbage goal in, and that's the kind of goal that they need to score more in Edmonton, and they don't do enough of. They don't have enough supplementary scoring, and regardless of how many goals or points McDavid and Draisaitl score, this team is the same thing it's been for the last couple of years. It's, if you don't have McDavid, you're a lottery team pretty much. You're outside of the playoffs, and you're in the lottery every single year. So hopefully Mike Smith can get back into the net for them and start giving them some saves to make the game seem a little bit more even, because without goaltending, you can't do nothing in the NHL. I don't care how good your team is. If you don't have goaltending, don't even bother. Don't start out the season saying you want to make the playoffs or the cup is your goal, because if you don't have goaltending, what is even the point? There's a lot of good teams out there that don't have goaltending right now. Yeah. And in the third period, William Nylander outskates McDavid and makes a great play, skates behind the net. McDavid kind of hands off his player to the defenseman and tries to get back in front of the net. And William Nylander, on his backhand, puts a really nice pass through the front of the net, and it gets to Morgan Riley, and Morgan Riley puts it top corner. And with the absence of Mitch Marner, you start to appreciate William Nylander a lot more. What he does in terms of penalty killing, what he does in terms of back skate, like he skates back. That's something you can, there's a lot of knocks on William Nylander, but watching games this season, you can't say he doesn't back check. You can't say he doesn't play defense. He's top 3 in takeaways or top 5 in takeaways. He's grinding down low. He's making plays. He's scoring goals. And then all of a sudden you see that top line with Bunting and Kasha. Man, have they figured it out with Austin Matthews. And this gets back to what the Edmonton Oilers need the front office to do. Go out and get some players like Bunting and Kasha and not have to play Draisaitl with McDavid so much. And, with Marner out, Kasha has stepped up. Spezza played some time there before he got suspended. And, that line is really clicking. In the third period, Edmonton's trying to clear the puck. It goes off Kasha's face. And Austin Matthews just says, oh, here's a loose puck. Turns around. And deposits the puck in the back of the net with a rifle of a wrist shot. Koskinen had no chance. And, it's Austin Matthews shows you a little bit of the old and a little bit of the new in this game where he scores net front. But then he also takes a loose puck and on a nothing play, and he rips it home on the blocker side. And, you really have to just be in awe of his talent. The Leafs have dominated the Oilers the last 2 years, and it's not even close. It's not even close. When you have the conversation of what's the best team, who is the best team in Canada, it's not close. There is no conversation to be had. Regardless of what you want to say about playoff success, the team that wins the most on a regular basis is the Leafs, and they won the division. They won the Canadian division, which proves to you that they're the best Canadian team. And then this season, against a lot of the teams that people said they were going to have trouble against, they beat Tampa, they beat the Bruins, they went out west and they swept California. They've beat a lot of good teams. Carolina, they've more than handled themselves, and there's a reason why they have 42 points and they're tied for first place in the NHL. And the Leafs are having a really good season. I am not one of these people that sits around and says regular season doesn't matter. It's only about the playoffs. Listen, Black Friday came. I got a great deal on some big boy pants. I put them on. And I'm not going to walk around saying it's only about the playoffs because I don't want to get invested in the Leafs and they might hurt my feelings. They're a sports team. They can't hurt my feelings. Yes, I can be disappointed in the end result, but this isn't a relationship. The Leafs, me and the Leafs aren't in a relationship. I'm a fan of what's going on, and I'm gonna root for them. And right now, they're the best team in Canada, and I'm gonna state it the way it is. I look at the standings, I look at the stats, and that's what the stats tell me. This is not an opinion. This is fact. And the Leafs are just that good, and you should be proud of the Leafs. You should be proud of how the players are stepping up in the absence of Spezza, Marner. Mikheyev pretty much has missed the entire season. He just played his first game, and he looked good. Thank God. I like Mikheyev a lot. I hope he's going to be a Leaf for a long time. And, That's another guy that makes very little money but contributes on in a lot of different ways with his speed, his defensive game, his penalty killing, and he has offense in his game too. So there's a lot to like about what's going on with the Leafs and the Leafs roster. You look at a guy like Nick Foligno right now, and there's a lot of people advocating that we should sign Nick Foligno and we should keep him on the Leafs. The guy has no goals this season and 4 points. He's a no factor for the Bruins, and the Bruins are not that good this year because they spent that kind of money on the money on a guy like Nick Foligno who's not contributing at all. So the Leafs made a lot of hard decisions, and these decisions have paid off, and they've paid off to the point where we see, Kampf score big goals, and we've seen, Kampf two big goals against the Chicago Blackhawks this year, his former team that said this guy has no offense in his game, and he scored two huge goals against them. And, Dubas has made all the right decisions so far. It's interesting what the trade deadline is going to hold. I don't think they're going to stand pat. The Leafs are too good not to make moves to go for it. I'm not the type of guy that says, oh, you got to hold on to your first round picks. When your first round pick is 30th or 29th or 28th, it's a second round pick. And there's not a lot of talent to be had there. The draft class is not that great. So at the end of the day, it's very interesting to see what's going to happen. I'm hoping that the Leafs game this Saturday doesn't get canceled and they could play their other games regularly. I'm having a lot of fun watching the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. Every game is stress-free, and I know they're good, and I know they're going to play good, and the results are just fun to watch. I'm invested. I'm always going to be invested. The Leafs have been good last year. They've been good this year. Regardless of what goes on in the playoffs, I'm always going to say, hey, if you're at the top of the standings, you're a good team, and it's okay to say that right now. Right now, the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Sheldon Keefe, can't say, he can't get in front of a mic and say, you know what, we're a good team. Let me beat my chest a little bit. He can't say that because of the fan base, and they're whining and they're moaning and they're pissing. Like, knock it off about this playoff or bust. Because playoff or bust means if they don't win in the first round this year, that you're going to trade talented players and get rid of them for what? What are you going to replace them with? It's a flat cap. Where are you going? You're going to go get Mike Hoffman, who's a free agent, or you're going to go sign some other loser who doesn't nearly impact the game the same way Mitch Marner, William Nylander, Austin Matthews, Tavares, Riley. Playoff or bust is a stupid mentality because it means if you don't win in the first round, you have to make changes. And these players are too good to be traded away. You're never going to get value from Mitch Marner in a trade. It's going to be garbage. You're going to get a bunch of prospects and picks and maybe a player off the roster because you have to take some salary back because he makes $11 million. So you have to take a garbage player back and eat up some of your cap because the team can't afford $11 million Mitch Marner if that's the player you deem worth trading to make some changes. And it just doesn't make any sense. Playoffs or bust makes zero sense because what you're advocating is to make your team worse for zero reason. And, the playoffs are different every year. Whether you're playing, the Montreal Canadiens, it could be Tampa this year, it could be Boston this year, it could be Columbus this year, it could be the Pittsburgh Penguins this year. Who knows? It could be the Florida Panthers. What if Tampa wins the division and the Leafs have to play the Florida Panthers? Playing a good team and losing, two good teams playing each other and losing, doesn't mean that one team sucks and one team is better. It just means that two good teams fought it out and one team won and one team didn't. I'm all about the truth. I'm all about being honest and being upfront. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm not going to lie to you to save your feelings, It's the Leafs are good, and I advocate for watching the games and getting invested. This is a good season. They're going to get a lot of points. They probably could set some, If they keep winning like this, they might set some new records in terms of wins and points in a season. They're a really good team. Watch the games, Leaf fans. Pay attention to what's going on. The Leafs have changed their game. They're now winning games like they used to run and gun with no defense. Right now, their defense is great and it's creating offense for them. And Austin Matthews is a 200-foot player. Nylander's 200-foot player. Morgan Riley is all over the ice. He's having a great season ever since he signed his contract. He's just flying, Morgan Riley. And, Tavares is a point a game, and Nylander's point a game, and Riley's almost point a game. Morgan Riley next season is going to be the 22nd highest paid D-man in the NHL, and he's top 5 in points this year. That's bang for your buck. You can go out and pay Darnell Nurse $9.5 million, or you can get Riley at $7.5 million, and that's good management. Riley, Cale Makar is having a great season, but I think Morgan Riley is on par in terms of points, or maybe one less, or one or 2 points less. And that's a $9 million D-man, and he's a $7.5 million D-man. So it's not always about spending money. Morgan Riley did take a discount. It's more than evident that he took a discount, and ever since he cleared his conscience and he's relieved the stress off his shoulders about this contract, he's been playing great. So I definitely advocate for watching Leaf games. I advocate for you falling in love with the Leafs again. Don't, like I said, put your big boy pants on and watch some sports. And then when the sports is over, go on about your summer. You don't need to dwell on it. You're not in a relationship with the Leafs. The Leafs don't owe you anything, and you don't owe the Leafs anything. Whether you watch or don't watch, you can just stop watching, and that's perfectly fine. Nothing's going to change. If you can't, if there's something going on emotionally and you can't, and you don't like the end result, it's okay. Just walk away from the sport. You need to do what's good for you. Relieve the stress in your life. Live your life happy, man. Sports is not for everybody. To walk around and complain about the Leafs and bitching and moaning and it's playoffs or bust, all this stuff is really weak talk. Watch the games, man. You never know what's going to happen. That's why we play the games. Edmonton just beat Tampa 4-0, and then they beat the Florida Panthers. That's why you play the games. You don't know what's going to happen. That's the fun of sports. My cousin plays for the University of Western, and I was on this ride with him, and they went to the Vanier Cup this year, and they won the Vanier Cup. Every single game, I had so much anxiety and stress, I couldn't even talk. But, they were a great team, and they won, and Yates Cup, and they went all the way to the end and won the Vanier. Shout out to Antonio Valvano, number 29. So, at the end of the day, sports is just sports. Once the game ends, you turn it off and you go on about your life. Don't carry this baggage around with you. It's not good. Win, lose, or draw, the sun will still come up tomorrow, and the Leafs are still going to play their games, and we want to see them win, that's for sure. Okay. I will see you in the new year. Happy holidays and a Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year. We will see you in 2022. Stay safe. Enjoy your family. Enjoy everything. Enjoy the Leafs. Lots of sports. World Juniors, go Canada. And we'll see you guys then.